Hello and welcome to the training video on abuse awareness and prevention to assist service agencies and application entities to comply with Ontario Regulation 29910. The focus will be abuse awareness building and prevention for persons with developmental disabilities. We will provide a detailed definition of abuse for you to better understand and increase your awareness. In addition, we will cover reporting procedures, which include direct reporting to the police and how direct reporting can be an effective tool in abuse prevention. Part 2 of this video provides further details on how to conduct training and how to inform persons with developmental disabilities about abuse. For staff training to be effective, persons with developmental disabilities must also be trained on abuse prevention. In Canada, particularly in Ontario, the very first piece of research regarding the abuse of people with developmental disabilities was published in 1988. This publication documented for the very first time the facts that indicated abuse towards people with developmental disabilities have been occurring in the very systems that were set up to protect and care for them. It was and is a serious issue. Since then, hundreds of pieces of research have followed, and what has emerged shows a disturbing trend. Persons with developmental disabilities are vulnerable to abuse, and more importantly, most of those abusers are in care-providing roles. Even though these studies show varying numbers, overall it was demonstrated that 80% of women and up to 60% of men will experience some form of sexual victimization over the course of their lifetime. No studies show that the numbers are decreasing. The numbers for physical abuse are much more difficult to find. However, many report the following facts about physical abuse. Persons with developmental disabilities are physically victimized at a much higher rate, 4 to 10 times more frequently than other citizens. They are also at higher risk for re-victimization, and contrary to other citizens, they are frequently severely abused and for longer periods of time. The victimization is likely to take place in their residences, perpetrated by persons they know and who may be responsible for their services and supports. As for sexual abuse, persons with developmental disabilities are even more vulnerable because they are inadequately educated and lack the support to recognize, resist, and seek alternatives to abusive situations. The Regulation on Quality Assurance Measures will come into effect on January 1st, 2011 for service agencies and July 1st, 2011 for application entity functions. The new regulation takes a zero-tolerance position on abuse. The change is significant. Whereas previous legislation protected people with disabilities, under new regulations, they will be given the tools to protect themselves. The other major change is equally groundbreaking. Abuse against persons with developmental disabilities, which has long been criminal, will now be reported to those with expertise in dealing with crime. It will be subject to police investigation. Instead of agencies conducting an internal investigation when abuse occurs, police will now be called, and where grounds exist to believe that a criminal offense has been committed, charges may be laid and the matter may proceed into the criminal justice system. We now have an opportunity to take away a consistent understanding of abuse, dealing with allegations, and with how we can work towards abuse prevention. In Ontario, up till now, every agency approached the issue in slightly different ways. All had the intention of creating safe places, but all had different practices. A uniform approach makes it much more difficult for an abuser to simply move from agency to agency looking for another opportunity to abuse. Informing persons with developmental disabilities of the new regulation, of what abuse is and of how to report, is the first step in prevention. Ensuring that staff listen and all take consistent action in response to abuse is the second step. The overall goal of abuse prevention is that people with developmental disabilities need to feel safe in their homes and in their places of work. For this to work in their best interests, it's important to assert the rights of people that live within organizations to expect safety. They also have a right to expect for their voices to be clearly heard. Certainly, most staff working in human services do so because they truly care about the people they serve. It is important that staff feel confident about dealing with abuse. What is abuse? Regulation 29910 defines abuse as any action or behavior that causes or is likely to cause physical injury or psychological harm, or both, to a person with a developmental disability, or results or is likely to result in significant loss or destruction of their property, and includes neglect. However, there are two kinds of abuse. That is to say, abuse that constitutes a criminal offense and actions that may still be abusive but not criminal. Abuse must be reported to the police, and the regulation clearly outlines how agencies are required to respond. Should the police determine a criminal offense has not occurred, or upon the conclusion of their investigation it is determined the Crown will not proceed with charges, the agencies should still take action. All agencies will need to have policies and procedures that clearly state a zero tolerance for abuse and how they will respond to both the individual who has been abused and the abuser. Generally, there needs to be consequences depending on what occurred. For minor infractions, more education or training. For example, training in respect, how to talk to persons, what are their rights, may be appropriate. For offenses of a criminal nature or repeat offenses, consequences may include termination of employment for the abuser. Regulation 29910 requires a zero tolerance for all forms of abuse. Abuse can take many forms, some more visible than others. Sexual abuse is the unwanted touching of a person's sexual body parts. The lack of consent is the defining feature. Here it is important to note that the hierarchy makes it impossible for there to be consent between a person with a developmental disability and their care provider. Sexual abuse is also about the denial of a person's right to engage in consenting sexual behavior. Physical abuse is an act of assault or a threat of an assault, such as hitting, slapping, and burning, that cause or could cause actual physical injury or fear of physical injury. Verbal abuse is the use of demeaning language and name-calling. Negative verbal depictions of developmental disability or attractiveness are also forms of verbal abuse. Whenever constant criticism, insulting, threatening, degrading, humiliating, intimidation, or terrorizing of a person occurs, this is deemed psychological abuse. Emotional abuse is the misuse of power in any way to cause a person to lose respect for themselves. Psychological and emotional abuse can also include the demeaning of one's faith or beliefs or the imposition of another's faith unto the person. Financial abuse constitutes the misuse, misappropriation, or restriction of someone's financial assets for personal gain. People with developmental disabilities in care have a right to expect that their basic needs will be met, and they will be provided with appropriate supervision for their age and their developmental needs. What is harassment? The use of any comments, conduct, or gestures that are insulting, intimidating, humiliating, malicious, degrading, offensive, or discriminatory directed toward an individual or a group of individuals. What is sexual harassment? The use of any comments or conduct of a sexual nature undertaken with the intent of causing offense or humiliation.
Hello, I'm Detective Sergeant Leslie Raymond, the Abuse Issues Coordinator for Central Region, Ontario Provincial Police. Any form of abuse to anyone in our community is unacceptable. I'm here to talk to you today about our role as police in the prevention and reporting of abuse to persons with developmental disabilities. The regulation requires that you will immediately and directly report all abuse to police. We welcome all reports. It is imperative that you call immediately as soon as you suspect, witness, or hear a disclosure concerning abuse. It is our job to investigate and our job to determine if a criminal offense has taken place. Reporting immediately ensures that no evidence is lost or contaminated. If you receive a disclosure from a potential victim, it is important not to ask any further questions so that the statement is not tainted by inappropriate or leading questions. When a report is received, please have trained professionals who have experience in dealing with special populations, including those with developmental disabilities. Our first step when receiving a report is conducting interviews, first with the person making the report, and secondly with the potential victim. Interviewing may occur in the person's home, an office, or at the police station. It may also include videotaping. Videotaping is an important tool in supporting potential future prosecution. Part of our investigation would also include interviewing other witnesses, attending the scene, and gathering physical evidence. Even if the potential victim's disability prevents them from participating in a traditional interviewing process, that does not prevent us from investigating. Once all evidence is gathered, police will determine if there are sufficient grounds to proceed with a criminal charge. If there are charges laid, the alleged perpetrator will have conditions placed that will prevent them from having contact with the victim. Our goal is to ensure the safety of the victim. Although in some instances the investigation may not result in charges, it is important that all abuse is reported. Your immediate report and our investigation and involvement are important steps in preventing future abuse. Thank you.
Police involvement is now an important part of the new approach to abuse prevention by providing agencies with their expertise in dealing with criminal behaviors. Agencies are now challenged to become informed and knowledgeable about our roles and responsibilities in this regard. It is our responsibility to learn how to report and document abuse to ensure that the abusive behavior is fully investigated. How do we work with the police? Let's review the key points made by the police officer in our clip. When we witness abuse, it is reported directly to us or by another person that witnessed it. We must take immediate action. Agencies must call police directly and immediately to report. However, suspicions of abuse must be more fully considered before action is taken. Reportable suspicion is validated only by having direct evidence, not just concerns or worries. Direct evidence is tangible, defined as what is seen and can be documented, such as bruising, torn clothing, bleeding from vaginal or anal orifices. Should someone arrive to a program with clear evidence of abuse, such as a black eye and torn clothing, even though there are no witnesses or disclosure, you must report to the police. Should someone's behavior change in a way that leads to concerns, then it's important to become even more observant, looking to see if there is direct evidence of abuse. However, behavior changes alone are not considered as evidence because police are unable to investigate on that basis alone. Make your statement professional. Objectivity is the key to successful documentation. Stick to the facts. Don't use opinion. Simply write down what was said or what you saw. Demonstrate in your documentation that you did not ask questions or lead the person in any way. Do not clean up or use language that the person did not use. Write only in black or blue ink. If you make a mistake, cross it out, initial it, and continue. Do not use whiteout. Do not include information that might be prejudicial against the person or the accused. Their history will come out in the investigation. The report is about the allegation that was made or action that was witnessed, nothing more. It's a required policy of all agencies when reporting abuse directly to the police to wait until after the police have completed their investigation before conducting an internal investigation. Why is this so important? Did you know that currently only 3% of abusers are convicted? You might think that's because persons with developmental disabilities make poor witnesses or are unable to communicate effectively. That is not true. Only 3% of abusers are convicted because we don't report or report too late. Even when agencies report abuse, it is quite often after the agency has conducted its own investigation. The result is that evidence gets contaminated and cannot be used by either the police or in a court of law. We may believe that evidence is about DNA or fingerprints, but it is so much more. It is not just physical evidence, but evidence concerning ability, timing, proximity, and opportunity. Police are trained in gathering all evidence. Why do persons with developmental disabilities not tell us when they are being abused? There are many reasons. They don't recognize they are being abused. They fear the abuser. They fear getting in trouble for reporting. They are never believed, so why report? They don't know how to tell. And because people with developmental disabilities have most probably been threatened by the abuser to not talk, we can never be sure if the request to keep the allegation of abuse secret is as a result of choice or as a logical end result of coercion. Is consent of the victim necessary before calling police? Every person in Canada has the right to report a crime. When we see someone breaking into a building or assaulting a person on the street, we do not stop to ask the owner or victim, is it okay if I call the police? By not asking the police when we witness abuse in our agencies, we are allowing the abuser to victimize everyone else. Should we take the rights of others to safety away because one person does not want to report? Many persons with developmental disabilities fear the repercussions of reporting. That fear is often greater than the fear of the continued abuse. Regulation 29910 requires all persons with developmental disabilities be informed of the policies regarding abuse when they begin receiving services and supports to immediately and directly report abuse to the police. And why do some staff not report abuse? 1. Staff may feel like they are doing something wrong by telling on someone else. 2. Fear of being ostracized by co-workers and regarded as an unreliable friend or peer. 3. Fear that the agency may punish them, do nothing about it, or worse, cover up the incident. 4. Fear of no credibility that abuse occurred or of not being believed they are telling the truth. 5. Fear of publicity and the impact by family or the media when abuse becomes known to others. We're naturally subjective given the close relationships we have with those we support, our co-workers and our agency. Therefore, we cannot conduct an effective investigation when we are so very closely involved with those being investigated. What are some of the emotions you may be feeling when a person tells you about their victimization? When someone tells you about their victimization, you may go through many different emotions. You may be in shock, angry, or feel panicked for many different reasons. You may feel angry or mad that someone has done this to them. You may even be mad that you have to deal with this, or panic that you may not deal with the allegation appropriately. You may begin to doubt yourself and your competency. You're human, so your body language and facial expressions may be hard to control when dealing with an allegation. You will show some emotion, whether it's a flushed face or tight body, and that's okay. However, persons with developmental disabilities have difficulties reading emotional states, so we must be clear and honest about what you are feeling. Do not let the person guess what you are feeling. They may assume the wrong emotion and as a result, stop talking. Remember, you have been entrusted by this person, and that's a testament to your character. We have reported to police before and nothing happened. Actually, something did happen. The abuser now knows you take abuse seriously. When crime is reported to police, the measure of success is not in the number of convictions that result, but rather that a report was made and that by simply making that report and investigating, they have reduced the likelihood of abuse occurring again. In calling the police, you have created an environment that is not friendly to abusers. If you witness abuse, first intervene to ensure the safety of the person with a developmental disability. Reassure the person, inform them that what happened was abuse, and inform them the police must be called. Ask them if they would like to make the call or should you. Do not discuss what happened or why it happened. Reassure them that you can talk after the police have arrived. When a person with a developmental disability reports they were abused, follow the same steps as outlined when witnessing abuse. If they are unclear in their allegation, for instance, they say, "Staff hurt me," ask an open-ended question such as, "When you say hurt, what do you mean?" Or, "Can you tell me more?" You may be tempted if the person does not provide you with sufficient information or does not tell you more to call others to ask if something happened. Do not do this. Give the person time. Reporting abuse is frightening. Calling others could alert the abuser to a potential report. Do not ask why, when, where, or who questions. Leave that to the police. When do I stop our discussion? As soon as the individual provides enough information that indicates the allegation of abuse may be criminal in nature, stop all discussion, support, and call police. If you are not sure if the interaction or the report constitutes a criminal allegation, you need to still report. Police will decide. If they determine it is not a criminal allegation, you should then follow your agency's policies on abuse. In a situation where the person with a developmental disability is incapable, then their substitute decision maker or another person acting on their behalf must be informed of the abuse. If you suspect that the abuse occurred at the hands of their substitute decision maker, ask the police how to proceed before informing others. The person with developmental disability may want to discuss the allegation with other support staff, family, or friends. Encourage them to not do this until police have arrived and taken their statement. Staff should also not discuss the allegations with anyone else until police have investigated. Discussing the allegations with others can result in contaminating the evidence. If there are clear physical indicators of abuse, you must report it to the police. If you suspect abuse because of a change in behavior, then you document. If abuse is occurring, a pattern will develop. If you suspect someone is being victimized but not speaking about it, do not ask direct questions about your suspicions. Ask general questions such as, how are things going? Let the individual know that you are available to talk and support them. If an individual comes to the program exhibiting bruises, should you call the group home or family home to find out what happened? No. This may alert the potential abuser. Report to the police. They will investigate and determine if it is abuse or something else. Confidentiality is key. It protects the victim and also respects the accused. If the allegation is true, you may alert the abuser. If the allegation is false and confidentiality has not been followed, the character of the falsely accused has been tainted. It's important that you know the difference between behavior and abuse. We do not call the police over behavior. Intent is the defining feature. Behavior is in the moment and abuse is done with intent. Every case is individual. Ensure there is a clear allegation of abuse by asking objective questions. Once it's a clear allegation of abuse that indicates a criminal component, stop all questioning. Call police. Give the individual the option to call themselves with staff support. Support the individual, but do not discuss the situation further. Document. Inform others as per your agency policy. Follow agency policy for abuse reporting. Inform the family or substitute decision maker for individuals identified as not capable of making their own decisions. Complete a serious occurrence report. We all share a common goal to eliminate abuse. It's up to you to make that a reality. Be aware, report, take action.